and just. We have no required creed. We believe in the ideal that each person finds their own spiritual path, their own journey toward inner peace, social justice, or religious experience. And so I welcome you, whatever path brought you here, and I ask you to join us today with an open heart and an open mind, and I greet you with the same. Now let's join with the opening hymn, hymn 311, Let It Be a Dance.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spend. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing wrongs and nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round around we go again. Let it be a dance.
Oh, that was just beautiful, Renee singing there. I must say, today is a great day for a Zoom service. It's blustery and cold and windy, so I can say I don't miss traveling much on days like today. But I do miss the dance. I miss seeing all your faces and being able to swirl around and chat with all of you. But let's take a few minutes now to get in some breakout rooms and catch up a little bit, reintroduce ourselves to each other. I always feel sometimes like with these Zoom things, I'm inviting you into my home. So let's invite each other into our homes. And we should get a notice here of our random choice. Now I think everyone's back. I hope you enjoyed chatting for a bit. I know get lonely. We talked about being together. Here we are. I now would like to share a video of the chalice lighting. I found this on the YouTube when I was searching for chalice lighting for UUFM. This is from the Foothills Unitarian Church in Fort Collins, Colorado. The Reverend Ashley Horan offered this chalice lighting as part of the UUA's post-election vigil on Thursday, November 5th, 2020.
This is the flame of truth, shining light on the history of both strength and struggle that brought us here. Illuminated in this light are legacies and inheritances that shape us, that chastise us, that bless us, that call us forth. In this light, we honor the goodness and the blessing of the land on which we all sit. Indigenous land, then and now, that will always resist the restraint of colonization, of theft, of exploitation with its relentless abundance. We learn from that land, unceasing teacher of the tenacity of life, longing to burst forth and thrive. In this light, we honor the lives lost and stolen. Black lives, Native lives, lives of all those who have been enslaved, displaced, exploited, constrained in the building of this nation. We hold the trauma of those generations in tender care, while giving thanks for the exquisite inheritances of resilience and resistance that are equally a part of this legacy. In this light, beloveds, we honor all those for whom this election represents life and death. Black, brown, Indigenous, queer, trans, non-binary, poor, disabled, immigrant, more. And we honor too the knowing among us that even while our lives hang in the balance, our interests are not at the table. But still, in this light, we honor and hold the hope of all those who work and organize and fight, not for a single election, but for the freedom and thriving of all people everywhere. May this light, our light, illuminate the way forward.
The goodness and the blessing of the land that we live in. I feel so much hope today since November 5th. Now let's share the story for all ages. Sandy Nelson recommended this to me. Carolyn Kelly suggested it to her. It's called The Turkey's Gift to the People by Annie Rookie.
Hey friends, welcome back for Storytime Tuesday. Today we are going to read Turkey's Gift to the People by Annie Rookie. Now I want to read you this little part right here in the beginning that gives you a little heads up on the story, if you will. It says, this story is based upon a traditional Navajo folktale. It is not meant to be accurate retelling of the traditional folktale, but an adaptation and an interpretation of it. People is used throughout the story in the Native American way of referring to animals as the animal people, thereby acknowledging the close relationship between all forms of life. Once there was a time when all the people of the world lived and worked together in perfect harmony. One day during this time, Crow was exploring far from home. It was a beautiful day. To the east, he saw the sun shining on the hills. To the south, he saw the wind blowing gently through the grasses. To the west, he saw the cool water dripping from the mountaintops to the streams below. Crow headed north, flying farther and farther. Suddenly, he saw something he had never seen before on the horizon. It was a great wall of water, taller than any tree and wider than any river, and it was headed right toward his people and his homeland. Quickly, Crow turned and flew toward home, calling to the others along the way to warn them of the great wall of water that would soon flood their low, flat land. The people gathered together and listened to Crow, and they began to worry. Bear said, "We must move to higher ground." "But the mountains are too far away," said Butterfly. "Then we must go to the hills," decided Bear. The people agreed. "We must go to the hills and wait there for the water to recede." When they finally reached the hilltops and looked toward the wall of water far off in the distance, the people discovered it was much larger than they had imagined. These hills were not high enough to protect them. Then Mouse stepped forward. "I have an idea. These giant reeds are hollow, and their inside chambers are bigger than any cave. If we can get inside, we can wait there until the water passes." Beaver knew this was her job. She began to gnaw an opening at the base of the reed so the people could get inside. When Beaver finished, the people began to file into the reed 2 by 2. But very quickly the chamber became crowded, and the people realized this single chamber could not hold them all. "Beaver," said Moose, "climb onto my back and chew a hole through the chamber above." So Beaver climbed onto Moose's back, but she could not reach the top of the chamber. "Wait," said Spider, "I will weave a strong web for Beaver to climb so she can reach the top." When Spider finished, Beaver climbed the web and chewed a hole through the next chamber. In this way, Beaver and Spider worked together to open chamber after chamber, and the people followed them, moving farther and farther up the reed until everyone was inside. But Ground Squirrel was keeping track of everyone who entered the reed, and by his tally, one couple was missing. "Where are Mr. and Mrs. Turkey?" he shouted. The people searched all the chambers of the giant reed, but the couple was nowhere to be found. Ground Squirrel stepped outside and looked anxiously toward the approaching wall of water. Eagle knew he could help, so he swooped down out of the reed and circled high in the sky in search of his friends. Almost immediately he spotted them, running as fast as their short legs could carry them just in front of the floodwaters. "Hurry!" Eagle shouted. "Come on, you can make it!" It seemed like forever, but finally the couple flopped through the entrance to the reed, puffing and panting and gobbling. Everyone crowded around them while Wasp quickly sealed the opening so no water could get inside. See all of the water, and these are the reeds that they're hiding in. The people blurted out, "What happened? Where were you? You could have been killed." But Mr. and Mrs. Turkey were still trying to catch their breath. Finally, Mr. Turkey stood up and spoke. "You forgot the seeds," he exclaimed. Then he spread his feathers, letting the thousands of seeds that he and his wife had collected fall to the ground, the seeds the people would need to rebuild and survive after the floodwaters receded. All the people cheered. Each of them had helped in his own way, but it was the turkey who had remembered the seeds. Now I want to read you this little note about the author that says, Ani Rucky is a fine artist and a writer based in Columbia, Maryland. Mrs. Rucky was with a publishing house in Boston before taking time off to travel North America. She finds mythology a valuable teaching tool, especially for children, and retells this story because of its cooperative lesson, unlikely hero, and emphasis on the importance of seeds and plants. This is her first published work. So I hope you enjoyed reading Turkey's Gift to the People with me today, and join me next week for Storytime Tuesday.
That was beautiful. It reminds me of how in the wintertime we look at the gardening catalogs and go through the seeds that we've saved so that we know that spring is coming. It gives me a lot of hope. It reminds me of the story of Noah as well. I think that might be where the Bible got it from. Now it's time for the offertory. I want to remind everyone that you can please post your joys and concerns in the chat, and that we are recording today's service. So if you'd like to make your joy and concern anonymous, please just let us know, and we'll be reading those after the offertory. I wanted to describe the donations that we have today. You can donate always to the UUFM General Fund by going to our website, uufm.net, donate. But our November Helping Hands recipient is the Manhattan Emergency Shelter's Holiday Fund. Our fund will be used to buy holiday gifts for 2 families at the shelter, and I know that the shelter is full. You can also, capture the QR code on your screen, or practice the ancient art of check writing and mail a check to UUFM on Zinedale Road. I also wanted to mention that the UUFM holiday sale is on. It's online. Mark Clark set up a Facebook group, UUFM Christmas, and item submission begins December 1st, and the sale starts December 4th at 5 p.m. Stay tuned for more information, and expect an invitation from your Facebook friends. That's UUFM Christmas. Now for the offertory, Dustin Hayes will play Debussy. He's our beloved pianist, Dustin Hayes. He won first prize in the junior-senior category of the Kansas Music Teachers Association Collegiate Piano Competition with this performance of Debussy's Reflet dans l'eau, Music from Images, Book 1. That was beautiful. On that joyful note, we have some joys. No concerns, thank goodness, at this time of Thanksgiving. A lot of people got to spend time with family. Kathleen Oldfather, she was on Zoom with her 5 siblings. Isn't that, I always think how amazing it is. You can get so many people together across the generations around the world and share the holiday. And Nell spent 5 days with Kent and Beth in Lawrence. That's a wonderful long time. And Mary Reese and John were very, very happy that their son Adam got to spend a week here over the Thanksgiving holiday. All wonderful and warm things. Thank you all for sharing. Now we're going to look at the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee's Guest at Your Table. All month long, we've been sharing the stories of the UUSC's program of partnering with those who confront unjust power structures and mobilize to challenge oppressive policies. UUSC for 45 years has had the Guest at Your Table program, connecting us with the personal stories of UUSC's partners and amplifying their work and our support. This year, our Guest at Your Table theme is the meaning of home. This week's guest, Shuja Karamundin, is one of the many Rohingya people forced to leave Burma since the 1980s out of fear for their lives. A refugee since the age of 17, Shuja knows the difficulty of accessing basic services and building a life as a refugee in a new country. He co-founded Elam Empowerment, an organization to support Rohingya and other refugees in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Elam Empowerment provides educational opportunities, vocational trainings, and a community center where refugees can practice their cultural traditions. Here's a clip of Shuja explaining the reason he fled Burma, as well as some of the services Elam Empowerment provides.
In high school, I was going for exam and I was not allowed to sit in an exam. So I pretty much challenged the immigration officer who was not. So for that, I was arrested and I was detained. And after about 11 days, I was released on bail. Yet I was not, even the officer who released me told that it is not a guarantee freedom. So the general concern was, you could get again and then basically get killed. So that's how I fled. Elam Empowerment is basically to provide a safe space for refugees to come and breathe. An education or a training space to have that space that they can come and they can feel free and they can exercise their cultural things that they want to, for example, wedding, they want to do it in the cultural manner. We provide the space for them.
Thank you. Now Anna Franklin is going to share some chants with me and you. Thank you, Anna, for being part of our spiritual journey program today.
Om Bhuhu Om Bhuvaha Om Suvaha Om Mahaha. Om Jannaha. Om Tapaha. Om Satyam. Om Bhurbhuvassuvaha. Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Om Apo Jyotirasomratam Brahma Bhurbhuvassuvaron.
Could you unmute, Sarah?
Thank you. I was emotionally taken with that chanting. It always feels like it heals me from within. I asked Tom Phillips, excuse me, today, I'm messing up quite a bit, to share his spiritual journey of healing. I was very worried. I think we all were very worried when we heard that Tom was sick, and he's offered to help share part of his journey of healing. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. Please let me know if you cannot hear me or any problems. But I want to say that when Sarah first approached me about speaking in a service about my spiritual journey of healing related to a recent illness of mine, I sheepishly backed away and said no. Of course, that was easy because we were texting each other. I gave her some excuse like I could not really put it into words, or I didn't have much to share about. But then the next day I thought some more and realized it may be good healing for me to share my experience and my recovery with others. I called Sarah back and reversed my decision, and she said, okay, great. So first, here's the story of my recent illness and recovery, and then I'll get spiritual on you. Okay. I've been working at home since March 15th, teaching classes by Zoom, etc., and I was healthy during the pandemic shutdown until that all changed in mid-August. I was awakened one night in my sleep by severe chills and had a high fever of about 102, 103. I responded to ibuprofen and the temperature broke. Just the same, I went to the KSU clinic the next morning for a COVID test at the urging of my wife, Stacy, and I was negative. But later that day, the fever was back again with more chills, and I had more ibuprofen, and the temperature broke again. This cycle, however, went on for several days. My wife, Stacy, is a nurse at the Lafine Clinic on campus. She was concerned, but she was okay with what we were doing. Then on Sunday, about 3 days after this fever had started, I began having a fluttering in my chest. Okay, I held off telling Stacy until I realized the flutter was getting worse. So I told her, and she pulled out her stethoscope. And after listening just a little bit, she said, we should go to the ER. This is more than we should deal with at home. She clearly heard an arrhythmia known as atrial fibrillation. Now, I need to back up and tell you folks that I was diagnosed with AFib over 3 years ago, and it's been nicely managed with simple medication. It wasn't being managed that evening in August, however. We went to the ER at Via Christi, where they admitted me to their ICU until I had stabilized the next day on Monday. They also did a COVID test, and it was negative. Phew. My diagnosis at that point was fever of undetermined origin. Great. Then they did a chest x-ray and found a lymph node that was about twice the size it should have been. The pulmonary doc on staff wanted a biopsy of that node, but said they lacked the best instrument for it. So I was transferred in an ambulance that Monday evening to Stormont Vail in Topeka, where they have great facilities with the latest technologies. I was tested for nearly every infection known to medicine that had a test, from HIV to tuberculosis to malaria. None of the tests showed positive. I was given several antibiotics in sequence through my IV, some quite strong. The sample of the lymph node proved negative for various infections. But the pulmonary doc said the tissue sample was so small that they could not see and check for all the possibilities. They called in a doctor called a hematologist oncology. He specializes in cancer. He ordered a PET scan that found several lymph nodes in my chest lighting up blue, a sign that something was wrong, but we could not say for sure what it might be. He recommended a minimally invasive surgery to go in my side and take out these good-sized tissue samples, some good-sized samples from several lymph nodes in my torso region. So these could be screened and also cultured for lots of diseases, including cancer. At that point, I'd been at Stormont Vail 12 days. My fever eventually stopped and I was not showing obvious signs of infection. They sent me home, but had me scheduled to return in a week for that minimally invasive surgery. As time progressed over those 12 days in the hospital, and the doctors still had no answers, and there was the potential of these lymph nodes being cancerous, I had one of those moments, sort of a spiritual awakening, if you will. And it was akin to the old saying, there are no atheists in foxholes. Comfort and reassurance came from my wonderful wife, Stacy. She came to the hospital every day and helped me get through this ordeal. She could also talk to the doctors and nurses about technical stuff and then translate back to me. That was great. Also, I prayed often and meditated in silence when I could. The prayer I said in the hospital, which is one I've said for many years, is called the Serenity Prayer. It's one that John Alou has shared with us here in service before. It goes like this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There is more to my spiritual life I want to share, but let me continue with my medical story. I returned to the hospital on September 10th. I had surgery that evening, which was successful. However, they had problems intubating me, which required that I stay on a ventilator for 2 days after the surgery. When I woke up, I was drugged out, frightened, and confused. I was in bad shape. Let's see if you can see this photo. Yeah, wow. Anyway, really bad hair day then, and I hadn't shaved for quite a while. And the thing going through my nose was actually taking food down to my stomach that was turned into milkshake. I don't know. But anyway, I didn't like it. I was peed off. The tissue samples they took showed nothing right away that could be tested that day. My infectious disease doc said she was waiting for microbes to go in the culture until eventually they did grow, and she was able to diagnose a relatively common and treatable fungal disease called histoplasmosis. More importantly, the oncology analysis came back negative for any kind of cancer. I was in good shape and released to recover at home, which is what's been happening over the last 10 weeks since I was in the hospital. After 20 days in the hospital, mostly in a hospital bed, hooked up to IVs and machines, I had lost weight, much of that being muscle mass. I was weak. I had very low stamina and energy. But with the proper rest and time, with increasing little bits of exercise, I feel pretty much back to full health, medically speaking. Just the same, I went through a lot, and I did not share much of that with other people. At the beginning of my hospital time, Stacy was great at contacting my immediate family, my kids and siblings, so they knew what was happening with me. I did not really want her to do it, I guess, but why? Why wasn't I feeling that way? Stacy also emailed Jonna Lou, who then called me to share her concern and her thoughts for my support. And that really comforted me. Stacy kept up with regular family updates until I was able to do it myself. Why did I not tell others about my illness? My reason is something I've been dealing with most of my life. I was afraid that people would see me as weak, or afraid they would think I was looking for sympathy, or as I do at work or regarding other jobs and accomplishments that I hope for, fear that I'm not getting things done right. That's crazy, right? Or the pride that I don't need the help of others. Egocentricity, pride, and fear. Those are some of my weaknesses. However, my spiritual journey in life, so to speak, has helped me with those, to develop a little humility in my actions and accept help from others. My spiritual health draws its directions from the serenity prayer that I already spoke, the key words being acceptance, courage, and wisdom. My history with living a spiritual life had to start through my experience with organized religion. A lot of us have had that. I was born and raised a Methodist. My middle name is Wesley, for goodness sake. I was named for the founder of the Methodist Church. I attended Sunday school, was an acolyte. I became the president of the Methodist Youth Fellowship when I was a teenager. And I had a good life with my parents and siblings at home. We weren't overly religious, but we were progressive and happy, had good conversations and dinner, and all that had a great impact on me as I was growing up. We believed in a loving and forgiving God. That's not always true for everybody who goes to church as a kid. I learned to love the beauty in the world. I'm generally a positive, glass half full kind of person. Let me know if that's true or not. I believe that people are basically good, but I know that we all have the potential to do bad things. After I grew up, married, had kids, and after the kids were grown, moved here, and we gravitated to Unitarian Universalism. It gave us the freedom to believe what we want. Now, usually the shy or fearful part of me would not want to stand up in front, and this is true for a long time, I would not want to stand up in front of a group of Unitarians and admit that I believe in a higher power. But then, since I have the internet, I read on Wikipedia that about 50% of you use believe in God. And I became less apprehensive about coming today. Organized religion like Unitarian Universalism gives us a good structure for spiritual practice if we want to use it. My spiritual journey through my recent illness involved me to first clear my head and soul from fear and accept that I had no power over getting that illness. I got it and I couldn't go backwards. I was scared, I was pissed off, I was upset, but I didn't let that last too long. So I needed to muster the courage to endure the hospital and follow the directions of my doctors. Okay, so I accepted that I got this terrible illness, and then I made the decision that I knew what I could do, what I could handle, and that was to deal with the hospital and follow my doctor's orders. Third, I had to have the wisdom to know what I can and cannot do at that time, and what I needed to do into the future. With whatever our challenges may come along, I continue with daily prayer and meditation as the tools for me to live a good life. Service to other people can also help a lot in healing and spiritual growth. Of course, as many of us learned in another prayer as children, do unto others as we would have done unto us. Practicing love and respect for my family and friends, I need lots of practice at it, helps me do the right things in life. So thanks for listening, and again, thanks to Sarah for inviting me.
Thanks, Tom, for being an inspiration, always. I'm glad you said yes. Our next spiritual journey is from Katie Kingery Page. She gave a spiritual journey in the early days when I first came to UUFM a couple of years ago. And when I heard her give her spiritual journey, she was talking about me. It gave me so much hope to find a place where people were just like me, or that were willing to speak up just like me. And Katie, I'm looking forward to what you have to share with us today.
Thank you, Sarah. It means a lot to me that that spiritual journey touched you. That means a lot to me. And I want to thank Tom because what he just shared was so brave. And I can relate to that too, especially the parts about my own foolish pride that does things in my life. So thank you so much, Tom. That was powerful. I'm going to share a very brief, I'm going to call this a spiritual journey update, since I know some of you have heard from me before. And I want to share just a little bit about what brought me to UUFM and what keeps me here. And since there certainly are folks here today who may not have ever heard anything from me before, let me start there with what brought me to UUFM. Some of you know that I joined UUFM after my father moved to Manhattan around 2011. I had attended services on Sundays before, but I joke that I was a lurker because I didn't really stay to talk to anyone. I was there for the service, not for the community. I didn't yet realize what a spiritual community could offer to me. When my father moved to Manhattan, his health was failing, and it was a stressful time for him and for my family. We had a 1-year-old baby at the time, a 10-year-old child, and then suddenly we had an elder with very grave health problems needing our love and attention. It's not an exaggeration for me to say that it was one of the most stressful times of my life. In the midst of it, I wanted to help my father preserve his sense of self, his identity, and I knew UUFM was a place where he could find community. So together as a family, we realized we could establish a positive weekly ritual, and we started to attend regularly. The second Sunday we came, my dad said to me, "Katie, let's sign the book." And he meant let's join, and I do owe that to Shirley Hobrock. But I took his request very seriously because it was coming from a man who I'd never known to belong to any church and who had raised me and my brothers as culturally Catholic, free-thinking agnostics. You can imagine that gets a kid comfortable with ambiguity. And that in a nutshell was certainly my childhood, get comfortable with ambiguity. So this is how my spiritual journey with UUFM began. It was a safe haven for me and my eccentric family, honestly. But it became so much more. I learned why people love to be part of a spiritual community, the opportunity for self-examination and growth. These are the things that keep me at UUFM. I became involved in the Sunday Services Committee, served on the board, and then as board chair, and continued to offer my time with Sunday Services Committee. Along the way, I've been deeply impressed by the commitment of you, my fellow UUs, to sustaining this community and demonstrating our love for the world as a community of conscience. That's what keeps me here. The opportunities to stand with you on the side of love, so to speak, as a part of much larger social movements, that has been life-changing for me. This work that many of you contribute to and feel motivated by, that's been the space that allows me to examine my own biases, assumptions, privileges, the space to become a better person, which is a truly spiritual undertaking. A few of the movements that have meant so much to me are the Coalition for Equal Justice, Manhattan's Change the Mascot movement, and the Poor People's Campaign. Each has connected me to ever broader communities of conscience. When I'm out in the world, I see that UUs show up for what is right, and this means everything to me. I'd like to close by expressing gratitude to each of you for all the ways that you show up in our UUFM community and beyond. For some of you, the most meaningful aspect of belonging may be sustaining this fellowship. For others, it may be shining our beacon for the world to see. All the ways that you tend to what Unitarian Universalism is, these ways matter. There's not a wrong or a right way to show up. Your gifts are valued. This is the meaning of a truly accepting and beloved community. To each of you, thank you for showing me. Thank you for showing me what that is.
Thanks, Katie. Showing up for what's right. That's my mantra for the week. I'll be showing up for what's right. So as I was preparing the service today, I realized that I know far too few people in the fellowship these days. I really miss meeting new people and reconnecting with old friends here. But it's got me thinking a lot about what I'm going to do in the springtime when the seeds can be planted. I think about getting out and seeing you all on Zinedale Road. But for right now, we have coffee and conversation on the Zoom. And I hope you'll join us for some coffee and conversation and catch up with us afterwards. Thank you all for sharing your Sunday morning with us. It was a wonderful experience. Thank you. Go in peace.
Where my free spirit onward leads, well, there shall be my way. By my own light illumined, I've journeyed night and day. My age a time or cloak I wear, as once I wore my youth. I celebrate life's mystery, I celebrate that's truth. My family is not confined to mother, maid, and child, but it includes all creatures, be they tame or be they wild. My family upon this earth includes all living things, on land or in the ocean deep, or borne aloft on wings. The ever-spinning universe, well, there shall be my home. I sing and spin within it, as through this life I roam. Eternity is hard to ken, and harder still is this. A human life, when truly seen, is briefer than a kiss.
Oh, it's briefer than a kiss. Thank you all again. I hope you'll stay for coffee. God bless, as we say, or blessed be. Take care, everyone.